Well, Billy Bob could. He said, yes, sir, I can. There's the Democratic Party, there's the Republican Party, and there's the cocktail party. Only one in the class to get them all right. Now, I'll tell you, Billy Bob defends politicians. He really does. Why, just the other day, the newspaper wrote a slanderous article about the politicians in Springfield. They said that half the politicians were crooks. Now, Billy Bob wouldn't put up with that. He said, you write a retraction right now. And they did. The next day it said, we apologize. Half the politicians in Springfield are not crooks. Satisfied Billy Joe, Billy Boy, who has the oldest profession? And the surgeon said, well, I do because the Bible says that Eve was carved from the rib of Adam's side. That's a surgical procedure. That's right. Now the contractor said, hold it. It says also that all things that were created out of chaos, Montana to the mayor of Springfield, his honor, Billy Boy Morrisette.
This is Bill Morrisette, Mayor of Springfield, and I want to wish you all a happy and safe holiday season. This is the time of year to rejoice in our good fortune and to give thanks for the many achievements of the past year. The best way a community can give thanks is by sharing with its less fortunate members. So let's make this the best holiday season possible, a sharing holiday season. Thank you.
TCI Cablevision wishing you a very happy holiday season.
This is Bill Morrisette, Mayor of Springfield, and I want to wish you all a happy and safe holiday season. This is the time of year to rejoice in our good fortune and to give thanks for the many achievements of the past year. The best way a community can give thanks is by sharing with its less fortunate members. So let's make this the best holiday season possible, a sharing holiday season. Thank you.
TCI Cablevision wishing you a very happy holiday season.
Unveil in his State of the City address tonight.
Like most of Oregon, Springfield experienced unprecedented growth in 1989, especially in the retail area. The new Gateway Mall partially opened and other major retailers expanded. Morrisette says the $100 million investment by retailers is a strong sign of steady economic growth throughout the 90s. Still, the community needs more production-type jobs.
I think it's fairly obvious that unless this is followed by an increase in population and some production jobs, that the area is going to be in trouble.
To head off trouble, Morrisette, the timber industry, and other community leaders have set up a group to nurture the primary industry of Springfield, wood products. The consortium's first meeting will be in February.
The idea is that the primary wood producers would assist starting some new secondary wood products industry, which is going to continue to be the base of Springfield. I don't think we're going to get a whole lot of very many high-tech firms in here, and I see our future primarily as a wood products community.
Morrisette says state support for a new industrialized housing plant at the old Booth Kelly site should also lead to more family wage jobs. Economic growth and state support has also allowed the city to beautify downtown and other areas. In the past 3 years, $8 million has been spent on sidewalk and street improvements. Morrisette said his goal is to have trees and sidewalks along 7 miles of Main Street from Mill to 77th by 1992. A robust economy means the city won't have to raise taxes next year to pay for city services, but that may not be the case in 2 years when a budget surplus runs out, and Springfield residents have turned down tax proposals in recent years. Morrisette hopes to change that tax rejection trend by developing a community values statement, which citizens will support at the ballot box. In Springfield, Jack Spalding for Northwest News.
My outlook for the next 2 years is we're in a fairly stable mode. We will continue to provide the services that we have been providing over the last year or two, and I think that's good news because I was running for...
But Morrisette says the city is still spending more than it makes and is getting by on reserves. He says that will have to end in 1992 when voters will need to decide whether they'll support a tax hike or service cuts. Morrisette also says 1990 will be the year for consensus building between the city and residents. Morissette's address is at 7:30 tonight at City Hall Council Chamber.
Praise city employees for doing more with less, but he says that pattern cannot continue forever. Doug Barber has details.
It's been 14 years since the city of Springfield's had a tax base increase. In a preview of his State of the City address, Mayor Bill Morrisette said the city is balancing its budget out of its reserves, and those reserves will be gone within 2 years.
The good news is that we will not ask for a tax increase as far as the operating budget for 2 years. The projection is 2 years away. The reality is that we can't continue to stretch the system as we have for the past decade.
Morrisette knows it won't be easy getting new taxes out of Springfield voters. Last year, proposed tax increment financing for the Gateway District was turned down by a 2-to-1 margin. And Springfield voters have rejected 13 tax increase proposals in the past decade.
I think the attitude of government of trust me and I'll do what's best for you doesn't fly anymore, and I don't think people will accept that. So unless by the year, over the next 2 years, unless we build that base of community involvement and trust, then I don't have much hope to pass a tax base in Springfield.
As a result, Morrisette says his #1 goal this year will be building community consensus in Springfield.
Consensus building is a buzzword. I mean, it has become a buzzword, and it's that thing that we say we're going to do when all else fails.
That's not a very optimistic starting point, but Morrisette is convinced if there's not some agreement on what the city should be doing, things will continue to fail. While laying the groundwork for a tax increase in the years ahead, Morrisette says he'll begin work immediately on developing new production jobs in Springfield.
The idea is that the primary wood producers would assist starting some new secondary wood products industry, which is going to continue to be the base of Springfield.
But even if the drive for new business is successful beyond his wildest dreams, Morrisette says a new tax base will still be needed. New developments help lower everyone's tax rate, but they don't add any dollars to city's coffers. And he says that's what Springfield really needs. Doug Barber, Eyewitness News.
Mayor Morrisette will present his formal State of the City address tonight at 7:30 in the Springfield City Council chambers.
Morris also said tonight that Springfield must keep a cautious eye on its future.
A little while, but the governor was very impressed with what we have in Springfield, much more impressed than he was 3 years ago.
Morrisette says Springfield achieved quite a lot last year. He points to the millions of dollars worth of new business in the area, the partial completion of the Gateway Mall in particular. 1989 saw the long-awaited relocation of the historic Southern Pacific train depot. But along with the good news came some bad. Morrisette cited voter rejection of the Gateway Tax Increment District and the continuation of the 19-month-long strike at the Nikolai Morgan plant as major disappointments.
To me, it is unacceptable that they don't get together and negotiate a fair settlement.
On the plus side, Morrisette says Springfield should enjoy economic stability for the next 2 years.
It's through a heroic effort to cut down on expenses and to stretch our staff, we have been able to provide the same level of services. And I'm not sure that people understand that. I think people think, now what have you done for me lately?
Morrisette says voters will have to decide in 1992 between supporting a tax hike or seeing service cuts. As for 1990, Morrisette says this is the year for consensus building between the city and its residents.
Berg's computer. Berg is out of the country until the end of next week. The Mail shows that after a vote which put Ron Sinecor on the Human Rights Commission, 3 city councilors, Larry Shands, Bruce Berg, and Ralph Walters, began writing a series of email messages to each other, decrying the fact that Sinecor would bring with him a liberal gay rights agenda. Gene Powell has the latest.
Councilor Larry Shands wrote of Sinecor's appointment, the Human Rights Commission could really get going now with its agenda to indoctrinate the community with its version of human relations, multicultural diversity, homosexual rights, etc. I am really discouraged that the Christian community is not more involved in the local governmental processes. Councilor Ralph Walters adds, I'm also very frustrated with the Christian community and its aloofness to the issues. I was so far ahead of myself in thinking that we Christians and traditional values folk were going to take over the Human Rights Commission that I forgot to cover my bases. It's going to take more involvement than singing against the spirits of darkness if Christians are going to claim or maintain Springfield as their own town. Councilor Bruce Berg suggests to Walters and Shands, perhaps you two, who attend large churches with potentially hundreds of activists, could do a presentation at your church giving the Human Rights Commission as an explicit example of why the lack of involvement by the Christians is paving the way for destruction. 3 days after Sinecor's appointment, Walters wrote Berg and Shands, I would like to propose a radical idea, but one which I think is legally okay. That if when it comes time to ratify our selections for the Human Rights Commission, we decide not to vote for Sinecor, then I make the motion to nominate Melody Kelsey. We take another vote, and with George's vote, we appoint Melody. Of course, this will take solidarity and intensive lobbying with George. Shands responds, I got the same idea. Count on me. Berg adds, I'll be proud to vote with you. Great idea. We're just one short. On August 12th, Walters writes, he has secured the necessary 4th vote. Just met with George, and he said he would rescind his support of Sinecor. George says he would like to meet with us more often so that we can avoid these misunderstandings in the future. It's going to be great knowing that Kelsey is on the Human Rights Commission. She's tough and won't cave in when it comes time to voice opposition to gay rights. After the meeting at which Sinecor is voted off the commission, Walters congratulates Berg. You're a hero, Bruce. It's either their, Councilor Gail Decker and Mayor Bill Morissette's agenda, or ours. Unfortunately, there isn't room for compromise when it comes to absolute versus relative values. Gene Powell, Eyewitness News.
The question is, have a majority of Springfield City Councilors broken the open meetings law? The mayor thinks at least the spirit of the law was broken, if not the letter. However, even if it was broken, there is no penalty for the violation of an open meetings law. The only remedy is judicial. Someone could sue the city for conducting a meeting without public notice or input.
Working hand in hand with a lot of people in the area to make this a destination spot after dark and during the daytimes too.
Springfield Mayor Bill Morrisette was on hand for the event and congratulated Gibson on his endeavor.
I want to congratulate Dave Gibson and his family for the risk that they're taking, the sacrifices that they have made and will continue to make. They're not going to get rich on this, and believe me, they are putting a lot of sweat in themselves into it.
The theater will feature theme nights as well as movie marathons and soon Saturday morning cartoons for the kids. But for the most part, this is a movie theater dedicated to the classics. For the grand reopening, Gibson chose to present Showboat and West Side Story, which will run through Sunday. But of course, they have to be preceded by a classic Woody Woodpecker cartoon. Shelley Kurtz reporting for Northwest News. That's our report. Good night.
I guess it's a fascist mentality that if you don't agree with me, you're dead, you're wrong.
I'm not afraid of anything. What I'm concerned about is the ability to enforce protection for people who engage in their own private sexual behavior and the larger social issues. Again, health benefits, contractual relationships, treated as marriage relationships.
Some officials say that dispute is pointless because the Human Rights Commission is only an advisory board. Only the state or federal government can change laws governing the treatment of homosexuals. But the thought that public officials would use government office for a religious agenda may be a violation of Oregon law.
To the extent that public body is using religious viewpoints as a test for making appointments, that would clearly violate the Oregon Bill of Rights.
And the process used to put together enough votes to oust the liberal candidate has triggered calls for an investigation. Some officials believe the three councilors violated public meetings laws by gathering a majority vote in private.
The blatant disregard for public process, and the reason that I asked these three councilors to resign is that I feel that they knowingly, blatantly circumvented the system to affect public policy.
Two of the three councilors contacted say they won't resign. Bruce Berg is vacationing abroad. Mayor Morrisette says he does not intend to ask the three councilors for their resignations again, although the issue will come up Monday when the council looks at how commission members are appointed. And if voters decide not to recall any of the three councilors, the issue will end. In Springfield, Chris Chandler, Northwest News.
After watching Eyewitness News last night. In our report, we quoted from a series of electronic mail messages concerning a Springfield Human Rights Commission appointment, which were authored and circulated among councilors Bruce Berg, Ralph Walters, and Larry Shawns. Morrisette says the messages constitute a clear violation of the open meetings law.
Not just the spirit of the law, but that three people conspired to achieve an end. They got a fourth person. They talked about goals, strategies. They accomplished it surreptitiously. They celebrated, bragged about it, and said they were going to take over the Human Rights Commission, which is a second violation of the Constitution because there clearly can be no religious test to hold an office. A Human Rights Commission is an office, and to require that a person be a Christian, their variety of Christian, is unconstitutional.
The computer messages indicate the three convinced Councilor George Wojcik to join them in voting Ron Sinecor off the commission and replacing him with Melody Kelsey. They were concerned Sinecor would promote a gay rights agenda on the commission. Morrisette says he has received dozens of calls today from constituents who support his requests for the resignations of Berg, Walters, and Shawns.
All of them supportive.
Supportive of?
This is not a human rights or a Christian issue. This is a process issue. It could have been over streets or sewers or land use. It's the fact that they violated the trust of the community. And
Morrisette says what happens next is up to the councilors and the people of Springfield. One of the three, Bruce Berg, is in Portugal on vacation until next Friday, so the mayor has not heard from him about resigning. But Ralph Walter says he has no intention of leaving the council because he says he did not violate the open meetings law.
There was never a meeting because a meeting is impossible on the email system. You cannot have a conference email discussion. And even if it were interpreted that it could be, there were never 4 councilors discussing the issue jointly.
Walters also denies putting any person through a religious test, but he says he is a conservative Republican and he wants his value system represented on the Human Rights Commission.
I just don't believe that special rights should be granted to people who choose a certain sexual behavior. That's their business, but if they want to make it their agenda and impose it on me, then I'll resist that.
Walter says he wants to reshape the mission of the Springfield Human Rights Commission. The council and commission have a joint meeting planned for early October.
Councilor Larry Shawn says he will not resign either. Shawn's also voted against Ron Sinecor. He says his decision was influenced by his own Christian beliefs.
The position of the church, as I've been taught, is that all sexual relationships outside of marriage are immoral, and not picking on one particular aspect of that, but just believing that traditional marriage is the way that I believe and the way I'm taught by my church.
Shawn says he believes many in the city share a similar view, and he says if he's wrong, he may not find out until re-election time. Well, the Springfield Human Rights Commission is at the center of the electronic mail controversy. The involved city councilors were hoping to redirect the focus of the commission by appointing a member more sympathetic to their views, which they call Christian and traditional. In computer messages, Councilor Berg, Shawn's, and Walters each expressed concerns that the commission was too committed to gay rights.
But I feel that the Human Rights Commission, as long as it focuses singly on the gay rights issue, is going to continue to divide the community.
There was no way that this was a gay rights agenda when it all began. It was just simply that. They were just included in a long list of people that we felt should be protected.
Kissinger says despite mixed support for the commission by the city council, the commission will continue to work at the mission given by its previous council.
We worked with the Native American community in the Springfield. Vision is to guarantee that no one is discriminated against because of race, creed, religion, color, national origin, age, sex, marital status, sexual preference, or mental or physical disability.
The Human Rights Commission was first set up by a mayor's task force in March of 1989. It was named a commission in 1990.
Packet of email messages regarding the Blue Water Boat Company of Springfield. Their expansion project was left on the front door of Northwest News. Apparently those who left the messages wanted to draw attention to letters from Mayor Bill Morrisette in favor of Blue Water's proposal. 3 Springfield city councilors were accused of violating the state's open meetings laws last week after using email. Morrisette says he didn't violate the law because he wasn't gathering votes and he didn't mail the email letters anyway. He thinks the person or persons that left the email copies are desperate.
That's the problem, is that people are doing things anonymously and they should do them in the open. I would not mind discussing this. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with it, but it's the behind-the-scenes work that bothers me.
One who served on the city's Human Rights Commission, the center of the controversy, says that they are angry that the conservative Christian views of some were secretly forced on others.
Everyone is entitled to their views. What I find objectionable is these are elected public officials who represent the residents of the city of Springfield, and they have tried to promote an agenda which they have seen by their own admission to keep secret. And I don't think that that is proper for elected officials.
The man that the councilors voted to oust from the board, Ron Sinecor, has applied for the vacancy, left when Wickheiser resigned in protest last month. The issue is expected to be come to a boil tonight when the council discusses how members of the commission are selected. Many conservative Christian supporters are expected to be there. We will have a complete report for you on our 11 o'clock.
Support. I'd just like to say I think the majority of people in Springfield are against any kind of civil rights, minority status for homosexuality. If I'm wrong, there's initiatives that can be taken up
As far as the email controversy, I'm a little surprised to see a issue like that attempted to be raised when clearly that's not a public meeting. In no way, shape, or form could it be construed to be a public meeting. And it strikes me as a cheap political shot.
At the previous meeting, I expressed embarrassment that this issue was being debated, that do we need a Human Rights Commission? I'm always trying to fight our bad image of Springfield. I'm still really embarrassed that this is still happening.
Councilors also discussed the process of selecting a new Human Rights Commission member, since Chairman George Wickheiser turned in his resignation over the affair. But Ralph Walters wanted to discuss the commission itself, saying a full-time human rights officer might be less divisive to the community.
I think it's very, I don't know, it seems like Eastern Europe and other places in the world that have lived under central planning committees and panels that seem to know how everyone else should think are overthrowing that kind of tyranny.
I think we just have to be open and honest and get above board and discuss our agenda. And then when we do, be done with it and move on to something else.
No action was scheduled on that topic, but the two besieged councilors said that people cannot help but bring their own opinions, whatever they may be, into public office. In Springfield, I'm Gary Leeming reporting for Northwest News.
Majority of the council, conservative Christians, led a move to get rid of it. Many anti-gay Springfield residents showed up last night to protest what they feel are special rights for gays. Some councilors feel the conservative right represents only 15% of Springfield residents. And 60% of those we talked to today supported the commission.
Well, I don't think it's right to get rid of the commission entirely just because of, you know, whether it's homosexuality or whatever a person's choice is.
If I'd known it existed, I probably knew what it was about. I probably would have liked to see it kept, probably, but I didn't even know it existed.
You know, it was there for a purpose.
Others say the commission, long perceived to be pro-gay on rights, should be disbanded.
I think they should abolish it.
I think we should still go back to the basics of our founding government and what the principles were set by. And our nation's becoming much too liberal, and we will pay a price for it.
Many Springfield residents polled weren't aware of the commission or that it had been disbanded. Much controversy has surrounded the human rights group. Several councilors plotted in secret to load it with anti-gay conservative Christians. Mayor Bill Morrisette says he's happy their agenda has been revealed in public, and he says if they can't allow the commission to do its job of helping minorities, it should be abolished.
The Human Rights Commission.
The late vote came at the end of a night of loud debate, and as David Bernard reports, it's a battle that's not over yet.
Armed with petitions and signs, members of the Oregon Citizens Alliance turned out in force last night at City Hall to defend 3 council members in the wake of the mayor's request that they resign for violating the spirit of open meeting laws. But the conservative group showed up to defend not just the councilman's use of electronic mail, but what they call traditional family values, values that the group says aren't represented by the Human Rights Commission.
However, at some point in the process, the term sexual orientation is added to the list of minorities. This allows the homosexual agenda to be advanced as a civil rights minority while minimizing the public debate about homosexuality.
Meanwhile, in the city council chambers, the question of how people should be appointed to commissions evolved into a debate over whether the city should even have a Human Rights Commission.
I again would question whether or not we need a commission to teach people how to behave or what to think or to love one another.
It wasn't until most of the audience had left that Councilman George Wojcik made a surprise motion to abolish the commission altogether. The council approved it 3-2, yes votes coming from Shantz, Walters, and Wojcik, a move the mayor says fits with past actions.
Well, yes, I think that to wait until 11:30 to do away with the Human Rights Commission is indicative of the way that they do business and out of the public eye.
The mayor told Eyewitness News last week he'd consider recreating a human rights task force to fill the place of the commission if the council decides to do away with it. He says he'll wait for the council's final vote on the matter before publicly announcing his decision. As for the commission itself, Chair Sidney Kissinger calls the vote disappointing. She blames the Oregon Citizens Alliance for creating the climate that brought it about.
I think the people in the state of Oregon need to beware that there is a group that is organized, and they are people who are coming from a place of hatred and bigotry.
The debate is sure to get even hotter. A public hearing is scheduled for next Monday night to take a final vote on whether or not to abolish Springfield's Human Rights Commission. Supporters of the commission say they will be there, and no doubt, so will the other side. With photographer Jim Hayward, David Bernard, Eyewitness News.
And charges of bigotry. Chris Chandler tells us officials are disappointed, sad, and angry that a commission the public wanted may soon be gone. And they fear the move may further the perception that Springfield is a redneck town.
I don't know. It seems like Eastern Europe and other places in the world that have lived under central planning committees and panels that seem to know how everyone else should think are overthrowing that kind of tyranny.
The tyranny Councilor Ralph Walters was referring to was the Human Rights Commission. He, Larry Shantz, and George Wojcik voted to eliminate the commission late last night over concerns the commission would support gay rights. Although in 2 years, the commission never dealt with any gay issues. But commission members say they were able to help racial minorities in need.
The commission itself has no authority to do anything but to listen to people's complaints and be empathetic.
I think it's really sad what happened in Springfield last night. The Human Rights Commission was a very viable and energetic source of advocacy for people in the city of Springfield, and now it's gone.
I believe that there is disagreement in the community, and disbanding the Human Rights Commission isn't going to make the disagreement go away. It's just going to eliminate an important forum for discussion.
The fear of homosexuality is like the icing on a cake of bigotry and hatred. When we take that icing off, we end up with people who also are afraid of people who are different from them for whatever reason.
The vote to eliminate the commission wasn't taken until 11:30 last night, long after this crowd had gone home.
It doesn't surprise me that they waited until 11:30 at night to do it either, because that's kind of the pattern that they've established. We don't want to talk about it publicly. We don't want to take the heat. Let's wait till everyone goes home.
My anger is more towards, I think, the message that it sends to the community. I think that people will view Springfield in this action as racist and bigoted, and I don't believe that's accurate, and I believe that the council is doing an injustice to the community and to its image by its actions last night.
A second vote to confirm last night's actions will be taken next Monday. Some council members feel that the conservative Christian anti-gay contingent represents just 15% of Springfield's population. The minority of the councilors who support the commission hope the rest of Springfield's voters will be more vocal next Monday night. In Springfield, Chris Chandler, Northwest News.
And late this afternoon, Springfield's assistant city attorney released an opinion that the councilors did not violate open meetings laws when they communicated secretly by computer. The conservative anti-gay councilors used city-owned computers to gather votes secretly on a so-called email system. They plotted to oust a liberal appointee to the Human Rights Commission and replaced him with a conservative. However, the state attorney general's office says the councilors' secret vote gathering probably was an open meetings violation.
Eugene also has an electronic mail system, but few city councilors use it. Only 4 of the 8 councilors are connected to the system, 3 through their own personal computers and 1 through the city-provided terminal. Those hooked up say they use it mostly to talk to staff and not other councilors.
I've received a few. Occasionally we send messages, particularly when a councilor is developing a position for a council meeting. They'll send a message outlining that to begin the thought process on my part, so that when we go to deliberate, I'll have some information.
I actually think, in terms of my messages to other councilors, they're all post facto. They've always been questions about, why the hell did you vote that way, kind of things.
Councilors say they never line up votes on issues as Springfield councilors did on their computers. They say those matters are always discussed in public meetings. They say computers are especially helpful in following up on constituent concerns. The messages are public record.
To have a member, at least 3 members of the city council recalled.
I think what's happened in the city is disgraceful. It is truly giving us, reinforcing what people already believe about Springfield, that it's a redneck, bigoted community. I know that it is not. I've been here for 30 years. I've taught for 28 years, and that's not what Springfield is like, and I think we need to cleanse that, and the only way to do it is to do it the way that probably is going to happen right now. The voters will ultimately decide, and they may as well do it sooner than later. So.
Request for information does not mean a recall is underway. Residents will have to fill out the appropriate forms and return them to City Hall to progress to the actual petition phase of the process. The City of Eugene formally is urging Springfield not to disband its Human Rights Commission, and Springfield Mayor Bill Morrisette says he understands Eugene's concern. Morrisette says many people live in Eugene and work in Springfield and vice versa. He says attitudes on human rights spill over into both communities.
I don't want people to say, well, I'm not going to go to Springfield because it's open season on people who are different. And if I lived in Eugene, I would be concerned about, if they were going to do away with the Human Rights Commission, I would be concerned about it, and I would be doing the same thing they're doing.
The Eugene City Council will show its support for the Springfield Human Rights Commission at a public hearing next Monday night.
Sadler to thinking about whether it's undermining Oregon's public meeting law.
Many Oregon cities let city councilors hook up their personal computers to the city computer so they can exchange electronic mail with the city manager, department heads, and each other. It is an efficient, effective way to communicate, and until recently, completely private. But 3 Springfield city councilors have spoiled the game for everyone else. Following a council meeting where 4 Springfield city councilors voted to rescind an appointment to the city's Human Rights Commission and appoint someone else, reporters learned that 3 councilors had used electronic mail messages to engineer the reversal. Just old-fashioned politicking, claimed Councilor Ralph Walters, who helped engineer the coup. It is the old-fashioned politicking of the smoke-filled room the public meeting law was passed to prevent. Reporters claimed the electronic mail messages were covered by the state public record law. The Springfield city attorney agreed. The messages were a revelation. 3 city councilors who did not mention much about their religion when they ran for office revealed they had a fundamentalist Christian agenda for city affairs. They had decided the appointee to the Human Rights Commission did not hold the right religious views and agreed to secretly persuade a 4th city councilor to vote to appoint someone who went to a politically correct church. There are 2 issues here. The public meeting law prohibits public officials from meeting in secret to deliberate toward a decision that must be made in public, like appointments to commissions. If electronic mail isn't included, the law needs to be changed to cover this new technology. But there is a more important issue. Since statehood in 1859, the Oregon Constitution has prohibited any religious test for election or appointment to a public office of public trust. 3 Springfield city councilors voted to replace a human rights commissioner who they felt didn't profess the right religion with someone who did. Oregon's populist reformers created the recall as a remedy for such unconstitutional acts of religious bigotry.
To the Human Rights Commission. Supporters of the councilors then called on Springfield's mayor to quit. Now citizens are getting involved. 3 people picked up informational packets on recall elections this afternoon. At least one wants to recall the councilors and another wants to oust the mayor. Meanwhile, civil rights groups in Lane County are hoping Springfield's Human Rights Commission weathers all the political fallout. Gene Powell has that story.
Marvin Revolt chairs the local NAACP. He was shocked when he read the electronic mail between 3 self-described conservative Springfield city councilors. The messages indicated they hoped to place a person on the Human Rights Commission who was sympathetic to their religious beliefs and values.
That whenever you bring religion, anybody's religion, into politics, people then think they have the right, because God told them they have the right, not to protect everybody, only those people who believe like they believe.
All of that may be irrelevant now, though. The Springfield City Council is 1 vote away from abolishing its Human Rights Commission, a move many local civil rights activists denounce. They say a comment by one Springfield councilor that because there are few complaints filed, there is no need for a commission is absurd.
Racism, homophobia, you know, ableism, all those things are there. Just because there are no reports doesn't mean they don't exist.
Those we spoke with today each had examples of specific complaints in Springfield.
In fact, we got a call last year from a guy in Springfield who was being incredibly harassed by his neighbors. People were yelling at him. People were destroying his property over there.
neighborhood complaints where families are being harassed by their neighbors. Complaints from citizens about the police department and how they're treated.
I know that there has been complaints of housing discrimination in both Eugene and Springfield.
Hayden, Revol, and Dockstader will be at Springfield City Council chambers this coming Monday at a public hearing. They plan to testify in favor of keeping the Human Rights Commission. Jean Powell, Eyewitness News.
Springfield City Councilor Larry Shawns is one who voted to abolish the Human Rights Commission. He is now reported as having said he's willing to reconsider and may be in favor of keeping the commission intact. However, he refused to take calls from Eyewitness News today.
Requested recall petition packets picked up the forms necessary to remove elected officials. Amy Deffenbacher says she wants to oust 3 conservative Springfield councilors who used electronic mail in a plot to drop a liberal from the Human Rights Commission.
Because basically it was like these 3 little people, you know, could get on their computers and make all the decisions when they should be doing it in public. And I just don't think it's good politics.
Springfield Mayor Bill Morrisette says he welcomes any and all recall petitions, even if he is a target.
That we need a vote of confidence at the present time. I'm willing to be voted upon if someone comes in and gets a petition to vote on me. That's fine. I think it needs to be done. It will be done sooner or later. I think it should be done sooner. We have to resolve this once and for all and move on.
The Lane County Deputy Clerk says the number of signatures required to begin a recall is 1,932.
Conservative perspective.
Well, I believe that the teaching of the Bible on homosexuality is that it is a sexual sin.
Jesus was a person who called us to love our neighbors. And that means every person that we come in contact with is our neighbor.
And so the debate goes, but does one have the right to impose a religious belief on others through politics and government?
I think it's just a matter of who has the majority at a particular time, where the balance of power is, what direction a commission of that kind is going, whether it's going to be leaning more to the conservative side, more to the liberal side.
All of us have a tendency, no matter who we are, to define our faith, to interpret our faith. We have to interpret our faith. When it goes raw is when we decide that our interpretation is God's interpretation, is the law, becomes unbendable.
At the heart of all of this religious and political debate is the future of Springfield's Human Rights Commission.
Here's a quote for you. Anyone attempting to remove religion from politics shouldn't be considered a true American.
Norman Fox, who spoke at Monday's rally in support of Councilors Berg, Shawns, and Walters, is willing to consider the continuation of the commission, but definitely not if its mission includes protecting the rights of homosexuals.
I would personally be opposed to extending special protections to a group of people who have basically identified themselves, have made themselves a group on the basis of their own behavior.
Pastor Debbie Roberts, also a member of Clergy and Laity Concern, supports the Human Rights Commission.
We need to be aware of the people around us and rejoice that there's diversity among us.
Roberts and Fox say they will be watching the Springfield City Council closely as it decides the future of the Human Rights Commission. Jean Powell, Eyewitness News.
The Springfield City Council is holding a public hearing Monday evening to hear what the public has to say about the Human Rights Commission.
The city of Portland spent tens of thousands of dollars to protect.
They tried to line up a Human Rights Commission appointee in secret. But Carlson says Morrisette is the one who made the mistake.
He is attempting to dispose of these 3 councilors simply because they disagree with his pro-homosexual agenda. Mayor Morrisette has tried to portray these 3 men as ruthless vigilantes against human rights, when in fact they fully support human rights. In reality,
Carlson will have 90 days to collect some 1,900 signatures. Other recall efforts are being considered against the 3 councilors. Now, those 3 councilors also voted to abolish the city's Human Rights Commission altogether. They're conservative Christians who find homosexuality immoral, and they feared that the commission was placing too much emphasis on gay rights.
But as Jean Powell reports, different churches view that subject in different ways.